Cool. Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to a new episode of the Muslim Real Podcast. I'm your host, Ismail Howell. Now, this podcast is an honest conversation about what it's really like to be a Muslim living in the West. In this season, we're talking about everything. Nothing is off the table. Politics, identity, mental health, trauma, culture, fashion. We intend to speak about everything. You're going to hear real voices who've had real struggles, and hopefully we can deal with real solutions about being a Muslim living in the West. We won't always agree on this platform, but my aim is to be sincere. So if you're a Muslim, navigating life as a Muslim in the West, this is a space for you. Now, my guest, mashallah, is a mover and a shaker. Since I know him from way back. He was the chairman of Brixton Masjid from 1994 to 2009. And he's traveled the Muslim world, worked in in the educational field at the management level, and now he's back in the UK. His present role in the National Zakat Foundation as a community leader. He's got his own consultancy, and basically he's busy. He's the type of brother that if you ask him what you're up to, he's not going to tell you he's chilling. This brother don't chill. He's always on a mission. He's always doing something constructive. He is the man himself, Dr. Abdul Haq Baker. So let's bring him onto the stage. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good to see you, brother Ismail.
Dr. Abdul Haq, I am, how can I say, so interested in this discussion that we're going to have, because you're a man, mashallah. You worked in Brixton Masjid as a chairman. You've traveled the Muslim world and worked in some key positions in the field of education. And now you're back in the UK. And you're not the type of brother that sits down and chills. You're always doing something. You always got some plan, some mission. Okay, so my interest now is, from your experience as a chairman, dealing with community issues, living in the Middle East and dealing with different cultures, dealing with Arab cultures, working at different management levels. Now you're back in the UK. So my first question is, what have you learned, and what is how has that shaped your current mission in the UK? What's your focus? What's your aim right now with all the experience that you've learned? Brother Abdul Haq, what are you up to, man? What's that? Because I know you ain't chilling. What's going on?
Do you know what, Ismail? It's a deep question, mashallah. And
also, 1 second. We're not going to cover everything in one podcast. So just understand you're going to be back, because we've got a lot of things to discuss. So don't try and squeeze everything in 1 hour. It won't happen.
No, absolutely not. I agree.
Fadal.
To start with, what have I learned? It has been a learning process, Ismail, and you've been part of that, mashallah, before we came to the Deen, how we came to the Deen and everything in that instance. And and for both of us, we've continued with the journeys respectively.
Yes.
For me, I think when being thrust into that position as chairman at the age of 27,
yes,
when you think about that, that's a very young age to take up the leadership of a community.
Yeah.
Okay, at every level of leadership. And you may forget this, you were one of the first who supported me in that position when you called me and told me I'll back you. It was the 11th of January.
Of course, brother. There was no thinking about it. There was no choice, brother.
Mashallah. And I think it was what you would say, for want of a better phrase, a baptism of fire. But I'd like to think that I have learned. I'd like to think that I have grown. And as I've traveled and worked in different parts of the Muslim world and visited different parts of the Muslim world, one thing that's become very, very evident to me is a retention or a reclaiming of what is our culture as Black British Muslims on the Sunnah. Because when we came to the Deen, we were being shown Islam as a lens that was alien to us, but we were ready to embrace it because we were looking at the Haqq. This is Islam, it's the Haqq. But what we didn't differentiate between were the cultural derivations that were being put on us as well. The Arabization, the
yes.
Asianification, everything except what we knew and who we were, because we had to carve out our own culture. And I'll pause there for you to
Can I stop you? Yes, yes. You know something which is very, very, very important now. As reverts, black reverts, we're being looked at as people who have left their culture. Because when you embrace Islam, if you've got too much zeal, as some of us were, we change our clothes, we change our names, we kind of move away from our families, we kind of disassociate ourselves because out of zeal of wanting to be with the Muslims. And I think that that's a mistake. Is that we don't think about we think about our wives and our children, what about our extended family? Also, it is seen from, I've seen some talk online that the issue of Islam comes to change your culture, that you actually give up your culture of being a black person, so now you're adopting Arab culture. And I think that can make a distance between yourself and your people, right? So that's what I think you can do out of zeal as a revert Muslim. Then when you do travel, you find out, everyone's looking for their own people. Do you get what I'm saying? I've left my people for you, and now you people are dealing with your own cultures, and I'm now left in a vacuum. I've now got to run back to my people and say, yo, I know where I'm at now. So your travels around the world, around the Muslim world, did you find that? Did you find that like, well, Asians represent Asians, Arabs represent Arabs, Africans represent Africans? Like, that's what you should do as a Muslim. Not that you now must leave your own culture and become Arabized. What's your comment on that?
Very true, Ismail. And I actually studied this in my PhD as well. Okay. And I looked at conversion theory and developed a 4-stage model which speaks exactly to what you're speaking about. That early stage, which I call the founding stage, where we enter the religion, we're in love with the religion, and where we discard so many aspects of what we think are alien to Islam. That's the founding early stage. Then the hype stage comes, that youthful stage, that overzealousness, that zeal that you mentioned. But everything that we're learning about the religion is idealistic, and we're looking at it through a lens of a different culture or different cultures, and not really understanding how to bring our own culture, which is unique, as I mentioned earlier, into it. But then we progress, Ismail. And I think this is what happens through getting married, having children, experiencing, having life experiences, traveling abroad. You move to that 3rd stage, which I call the adult stage, where you're now contextualizing your understanding. You're looking back at your earlier practices and saying, hold on, what happened there? And you're jigging it. You're readjusting it to fit the reality. Then you get to that last stage, which is the one I hope we're all arriving at, us in particular, as becoming older. That stage of wisdom, maturity, where not only have you contextualized and understood it, but now you're sharing that with others who are going through a similar journey to what you went through, but helping them not to make the same mistakes by discarding their culture, by cutting off family, by adopting an alien culture, only to be burnt and rejected by those telling you are not from us. So what you said is really important. And I'll add to that, saying in that respect there, when I traveled and saw that we were being looked on strangely because we were dressing more like them and they didn't dress like that. It's like, why are you wearing the red gutra? Why are you dressing in this particular way? And we're like, because it's sunnah. And it's like, this is not sunnah, this is Arab culture. Then we'd see them in the evenings, on the weekends, wearing pantalon and jeans and t-shirts like what we wore back in the day. The key thing here, Ismail, that I looked at when I was abroad, traveling and coming back, as British black Muslims, converts, we have a really definable culture that we never really acknowledged. And it was not just what is used as a stereotype in gang banging, music, drugs, women, violence. If you look at across the UK at the moment, and it's there in the studies and it's also there in the culture, you'll see that many other ethnicities and cultures follow what is Black British culture.
Mm-hmm.
Whether
Yeah.
they're looking at music, whether they're looking at the swag that we carry, the way we wear our clothes. Remember the 90s, we were the ones, just like our counterparts, our co-religionists and brothers and sisters in America, wearing our own designer clothes, dropping the nice trainers and everything that made the Nike, the Adidas, or whatever it was. And that's it, wearing our caps, how we were wearing them and stuff like that without gutra. We were dressing in a particular way that was hybridized between what might be Arab culture and street culture.
Yeah.
And we were being told, as Black people as well, you can't wear your hair in a particular way. Yet they were wearing their hair in that way with their European or Caucasian hairstyles and everything. So there was a contradiction in terms that we were looking at others telling us, you can't look like that. You've got to look like us. That is Islam, that is the Sunnah. But they themselves were not dressing in that way, and they were more mimicking the culture, our very strong street. And I'm saying street in a complimentary way. We're not talking road gutter. We're talking about the fashion that is now defined by street culture, street credibility, and as I said, what we would know commonly term as having that swag.
So would you categorically say and stipulate Islam does not come to take away your culture?
Not at all. What we see when Allah speaks in Surah Hujurat, ayat 13, that He's made us into tribes and nations, that we may know each other. And so therefore, whatever from our culture, our ways of life are conducive with the deen, we retain, we maintain them. Anything that is antithetical from our culture with the deen, we discard. And we've got practices that we saw from the Sahaba when they came to the deen. Those who had 10 wives, they had to discard those wives and only have 4. You had others who practiced the particular elements of their culture. They had to leave those particular elements. That applies to all of us. When you travel to Malaysia, I haven't been to Malaysia, but when you look at the Malaysians, when I went to Sudan, when I went to living in Saudi Arabia, living in United Arab Emirates, going to Kazakhstan, going to Sri Lanka and seeing the Muslims there. All of them have different derivations of their religion.
Yes.
That is conducive with Islam. They have not discarded them at all.
Yes. No, it's very important, and people should feel comfortable with embracing Islam and not think you're going to be Arabized. Not think that you have to change your name, or you have to change your hair, or you have to adopt another culture. I think that's very, very important. There has to be some pushback, because I can see people saying, oh, you become Muslim now. Oh, you've sold out to the Arabs. Right? I know it's a fault. It's kind of said in a way, say, oh, I'm not embracing that religion because look, the Arabs, for example, they enslaved Black people. And now they're doing it in Libya and some Arab countries, how they treat Black people. We have to speak about that and not be silent about it, because it looks like, oh, we've sold out. Do you get what I'm saying?
No, I do. And we do need to speak against that. And we do need to speak up and say that Arabism isn't all necessarily conducive with Islam. And sadly, some of the brothers who are Black, like us, have adopted that Arab mindset, in that whenever you speak about anything Black, you are accused of being Pan-African, you're accused of being nationalist in that instance. But if you're speaking with an Arabic vernacular or twang, I'm not talking against the Arabic language. You even hear brothers,
they got a different lahja,
they're speaking and they're sounding that they're mimicking the Arab intonations, and they're not Arabs. So you have to ask yourself, what has happened in that regard? And I will say straight and be frank in that regard. In the same way that we were colonized by the Europeans, and we wanted to speak the Queen's English, and we saw Africans doing that and coming and studying over here, and the mark of success was how much you imitated your colonial masters. We've seen that within us, amongst us, as Black Muslims and brown Muslims. And this is unfortunate, because it then speaks to what you're talking about. When we're trying to speak to our family members and non-Muslims, and they're seeing that imitation of the Arabs, but not the practice of Islam or the adherence of Islam within a culture that they can identify with, then they have every right to be concerned that
what are you doing?
Sorry.
They're saying like, what are you doing, bruv? Like you're living off. You're showing a false representation. I mean,
Exactly.
just to go over the point again, when we travel, like obviously I've been Saudi, I've been Egypt, whatever. Every people represents themselves.
Right.
Egyptian, Palestinian, Saudi, African, South Asian, Malaysian. They carry their culture. They wear the culture. They wear their clothes according to their culture. Everyone's doing their own thing.
Right.
As a revert now, if you're coming from a Caribbean background, you're like, okay, I've got to now, if you're first generation, second, you got to say, okay, what clothes do I wear? How do I have my hair? How do I move? You're now decide. So you might say, "Cha, forget that. I'm just going to put on Saudi thobe, wear a gutra, and assimilate with them." Or I'm going to wear shalwar kameez and whatever and assimilate with South Asians. No, you should stand on who you are.
Yes.
As long as it is in line with Islam, and be proud of that and carry on that road. You don't need to take on the next man's culture to be Muslim. It's a difficult thing. I get it. If you understand what we went through, it is difficult because you want to think, okay, do I come here with, do I bop? How do I wear my thobe? You kind of assimilate with the majority of the people, which you might say is Asians or Arabs, depends where you are. But that's a very important point, Abdul Haq. It is very important for new Muslims,
right,
and people who see. Yeah, go on, Phantom.
And I think in what this then leads to is how not only how we look at ourselves, but how we are viewed. And unfortunately, some of us reinforce particular stereotypes. So within the Muslim world and within the Muslim communities, and I can speak about here in the UK, and we can speak in the Middle East as well. If we are portraying ourselves from the worst elements of our culture, which unfortunately some Muslims are entertained by, as I said, that gangster roadman mentality, the entertainment perspective, and we want to fit into that particular bracket because we see it draws attention from the wider Muslim populace. This is wrong in and of itself as well, because sadly, that's how we're viewed by some of the wider Muslim populace. Otherwise we're invisible. Where are the doctors amongst us and the engineers and those who are doing the work? And they are there. And I'm not talking about those African brothers and sisters, because they have a culture and a tradition that goes back years. I'm talking about those likes of you and me who are converts, who have lineage that goes back through the West Indies, slavery and all of this. What is it that we are being defined by, and how are we defining ourselves? And many of us keep quiet because our constituents or our customers are from the wider South Asian, Arab communities. So when it comes to issues of blackness that they are speaking down on, we don't say anything because we don't want to lose our customer base. And I say that's wrong, because what we're seeing is that the unity between us as Black Muslims is disparate. And this again is an inherited legacy from slavery, where the divide and rule, not recognizing leadership. Ismail, I think you may agree with me that one of the strongest periods of time that I remember leadership, and it's not because I was at the helm, were in the early 90s with Brixton. We were tight, we were united. The wider authorities and all the other communities looked at us and they saw unity behind the leadership structure, unity behind faith, unity upon the sunnah that we continue to be upon. And when that dissipated, what we've seen is that there's no strong force of leadership amongst us Black Muslims, but we see leadership amongst the other communities. And for as long as that continues, there's going to be weakness amongst us and a lack of strong identity. And I'll just stop at this point here. We really need to thank our elders. I know we are becoming elders, but we really need to thank our elders, because when we came into Brixton, they fought to open that place because they saw the racism that they were facing all around in other communities. They opened that. We were the biggest cohort of individuals at that time in 1990 to come to the D. And then we started seeing and going down that idealistic road of Arabism. And that phrase came from one of the brothers.
Yes, that's right.
It was Brother Hanif, Sheikh Hanif. Islam did not come to take away our
culture. I'll never forget that statement.
That was a phrase from Brother Hanif.
Hanif,
and
Yes.
I'm in touch with him on Facebook and everything.
Yeah.
And I remember when they would be donning some African dress and
Yes.
they would be acting and behaving as themselves. And
Yes.
we were being encouraged to say, that's not Islam.
That's not
Islam,
the sunnah.
that's
I
not
would
the
say that's not
sunnah.
the sunnah. Yeah. Yeah.
The
It was our
sunnah,
mistake. Yes.
that was our mistake. And I think as we've grown, one of the things that you say how I stand up and represent in the communities and where I'm across the world, Ismail, I've represented and made millions, mashallah tabarakallah, for other communities. Okay, I've been in Arabia, for the Middle East, for 20 years, as you know, made a lot of money, educational excellence and achievements for those communities. Done that to an extent here. Worked with the Black community as well. But now my focus, while still Islam, the Sunnah, and everyone, because we're not racist, we're not taking preference, but I'm prioritizing that we need to be looking at Black excellence. We need to be looking at our identity, because when we're signing that application form and it says what type of Black are you, and we're fitting into boxes, and when you're speaking about Black people, you've got BAME, you've got Black, Asian, minority, ethnic, and we're positioned alongside Black, LGBTQ, others with disabilities. This is how we're positioned in Europe, in the UK. Why is no other ethnicity, like the Europeans, for example, you don't get white, LGBTQ, disabilities, impaired? It's only Black people who get that. And when we are aligned in that way, as though we have a problem as a minority, that in itself is problematic. So for myself now, Ismail, I don't define myself according to any of those constructs, which are colonial constructs. I describe myself as Afropean, which means the African in me, the European, because I'm born here, the Caribbean that's there. But I'm not saying anyone should take that on board. But if we self-define in a way that unifies us, other than the colonial framework that we're in, then that's one step forward. And we only have to refer to Malcolm X. We only have to refer to some of our great leaders that have passed. We only have to refer to, if you want to look at our ideal role model, Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and how he navigated and traversed with regards to Islam and brought all those other ethnicities, all those other cultures within the fold of Islam to make Islam what it was with Allah's guidance.
I think one thing is really very, very important from a dawah point of view. If we want Islam to be more acceptable to our people, we must represent it that Islam is an inclusive religion. That, as I said, you don't need to change your culture. Obviously, it's got to be in line with the Sharia. We understand that. But you don't become Arab. This deen, Allah sent his deen as sent Prophet Muhammad to the whole of mankind. So now then, the first generation or second generation like us have to now establish a presence so that our people, when they see us, they know, oh, my man hasn't changed his code. He hasn't become Arab. He's the same Ismail as before. He's the same as before. He hasn't, well, we changed our name, but he's not wearing Arab clothes, but he identifies as a Muslim. I'm saying from a dawah point of view, it's essential to be identified as a Black Muslim in your community, to your family, that you're not so distant. So it's easier for them to accept the religion. Do you get what I'm saying? Right. It's very important from a dawah point of view. It's essential.
And also that Ismail, also too, I think refocusing, needs to be done. And I think they're really powerful ones. We see that the first, where Islam was first accepted at state level was by a Black ruler. Okay. Islam, the first hijrah was to Africa, to Abyssinia, to Ethiopia. The first head of state to accept Islam and the fledgling community that came to him was a Black leader. But then also Ismail, and again, and I like this when I was reading this a few months ago, and it's a fact, but these things are not put forward by the Muslims themselves, which is really unfortunate. Mecca was established by a Black woman. It was founded by a Black woman, okay? But we don't hear statements like that from the wider Muslim populace. That's fact. Okay.
Yes.
And we know that. So when we look at these points here, and these are starting points, it instills in us not a pride and an arrogance, but a sense of belonging
Yes.
that is intrinsic to the religion. And that's something we should share with family and non. So did you know that the first city
Hajjah.
Islam
Yes,
was
yes.
founded by a black woman, Hajjah? They say Hajjah, then you tell them the story of Hajjah. Did you know the first head of state to accept Islam was Najashi of Ethiopia? So when they want to talk about enslaving the Muslims and everything like that, yes, there was enslavement of Arabs, of black Muslims, enslavement from black tribes to other black tribes, but that's another story. But we need to be speaking through that lens and reminding ourselves of that, and reminding the rest of the Muslim populace of that, because it's not there. We need to remind as well, Ismail, your Arabic is probably better than mine. When Allah speaks about the creation of Adam, he describes him as being made from black altered mud. Okay, we this is there. So why is
I mean, sorry, cut you. These key points, no one is going to push them except black Muslims.
That's right.
Like for example, we can't expect or think that Arabs, Pakistanis, whatever, are gonna push the religion for our benefit. Do you get what I'm saying? They understand the religion for the benefit of themselves and their people. No one is gonna push those points to their community, because it's for us to do that, to uplift our community. Do you get what I'm saying?
I do, and I think
that responsibility 100% falls on us in order to make the dawah to Islam easier for our people, and it's an obligation upon us.
And to educate them as well. I think, and to educate them as well, because the history of Islam, when we look at Islam, when we look at the Anbiya of Islam, and again, for those Muslims and black Muslims who shy away from this, there are many examples of black excellence. There are many examples of blackness. There are many examples of righteousness. We have a chapter in the Quran named after a black sage, Luqman alayhi salam. Why is it that these things aren't there? And as you've rightly said, we need to be the ones who push it, and we need to be the ones who educate our co-religionists, our brothers and sisters from different ethnicities, as to why this is being buried. And we need to walk with those on our shoulders as well. So I think, Ismail, you're seeing...
I mean, sorry to cut you again. I'm going to keep cutting you. Sorry, brother.
No, go ahead. You're welcome.
We know, and this is something which we have to discuss, put all our cards on the table as Muslims, that we're not hiding the reality of the ummah, the state of the ummah.
No.
That the current state of the ummah, yes, there's nationalism, there's tribalism, there's racism, and we must point it out. And so when you speak about these things about Hajjah being black, or you speak about things about Negos, the leader who the first Hijra was, being black, no other community is going to point it out.
No.
Unless they were doing it from a dawah point of view, but they're not going to point it out, because we understand, and you will understand from your travels, unfortunately, there is racism within the ummah at an unacceptable level. And it has to be spoken about, and it has to be called out. So that's my point. Like, the reality is, we're not going to get any help on these issues from the wider Muslim community. But then again, it's our duty anyway, for our own people, if you get what I'm saying.
And why is that though, Ismail? Let's move on. Yes. The reason why we're seeing that is because we're all looking through a lens of post-colonization. Okay, yes. African countries are doing the same. When you look at the what's happening there, they've been hamstrung by colonialism. When colonial masters left, they left the African continent in a state. When we look at what's happened to our forebears and what's happening in the Caribbean and everywhere, there are still colonial mindsets. I've just come back from visiting my mum, as you know, in Guyana, South America. And and mashallah, I was honored to be appointed as an ambassador for one of the People's National Congress, mashallah, in that instance. But looking at the condition of the people, that colonial mindset is still prevalent. It's still prevalent. They're not ready to do for themselves. They want handouts. This is what they're saying openly in some of the post-election reviews and everything. When I went and visited our sheikh, your my sheikh, Suleiman Abdul Sabor, Chilifan, who's retired and is living in Barbados, and I sat with him and saw whiteness all around me and blackness, and thought, oh, this is really calm, the atmosphere is nice. And he said, no, there's a form of apartheid here, because while there's a black leader, the white population, they own 90% of the businesses. They don't mix. They're rude to some of the individuals, and it's accepted. But this is the point I want to come to. We know the analogy of Malcolm X with regards to the house Negro and the field Negro, okay? And we all look at that, and you and me, Ismail, when we were growing, we were definitely the field Negroes when we look at it in the way that we grew in society. But Professor Kehendi Andrews, a Brit individual in teaching Black Studies in Birmingham, Aston University, I believe, or Birmingham City University, in his latest book, Nobody Can Buy You Freedom, in which he speaks about Malcolm X, I really liked what he said when he brought that analogy to a global context, the house Negro and the field Negro. And he said, all of us living in the West, we are actually house Negroes, looking at the comfort and the environment that we're living in. And those in the global South, they are field Negroes, looking at the developing state of their countries, looking at the struggle, look at them looking at them migrating across for a better life. And he said, it's our duty to help those field Negroes get into the same house as us. I would extend that to say, for us to be looking at those societies and giving of what we know of our intellectual abilities, of our physical abilities, of our financial abilities, contributing, like you've had Brother Musa on recently, and the work he and the others in Spot are doing in and on the African continent. Some brothers have gone back to the West Indies, and we need, as the house Negroes of the global context, to give to the field Negroes who are struggling in that instance. And then I'm going to bring another analogy which I found resonates, and I now use that as well before I stop with you. And that was from Shahid Bolson. I don't listen to much of what he's saying, but when he gave the analogy in the 21st century context to say, we like Musa, we have been raised in the house of Pharaoh, being the West. So we know the strengths, the weaknesses, the way of thinking. And we should therefore utilize that to our benefit, to our strength, to help others, to break off those psychological chains. But sadly, as Black individuals, some of us don't want to break off those chains.
There's one thing that happened recently, the storm in Jamaica, and the brother, what's his name? Bin Bakar.
Abdul Kareem.
Right now, they set up that fundraiser for the effects of the storm, and I thought that there is kind of maturity, because if you look at it, when it comes to fundraising, we are giving to Palestine, we are giving to Pakistan, we're giving to Afghanistan, but we don't, as I said, we're not looking back into the Caribbean and say, okay, what needs to be done there? And I thought that move there was a big move, right? It's something that should have come naturally. It should have been happening from years ago.
Right.
But people say, you know what? Why aren't I sending my money back home to build up masajid or fix up the place, but I'm giving it to others? Even though there's reward wherever you give your money in charity, but you should be looking after your people first. Do you get what I'm saying? And the fact that the fact that they had that foresight to say, yo, why are they looking after my own people? I'm giving it to other people. But back in my home, the roof got blown off the masjid, or this get tear down. I don't think about that, and that I thought was a key move.
That's right.
A very, very mature move, actually.
And that is, I'm not calling Bin Bakar, but if I bring that context of, if we can think that we are in the house of Pharaoh from a societal perspective, if we think that, actually we have got the comfort of the house Negro, but we're trying to change and decolonize how we're thinking, and we need to look at those who are in that field Negro perspective and support them. And that's not demeaning them in any way, but we need to change that mindset in that regard. When I traveled to Sudan and saw what I saw in Sudan, I was shocked.
Mm.
I was shocked. I know this is Sudanese doing to Sudanese in that instance.
Yes.
One of the things that I was appreciative of, and at that time I was CEO of Green Lane for that short tenure, when I came back and spoke to the Jama'ah, I didn't ask them for money. The fundraising was going for Palestine. I stood up and I told them what I saw. And all I said to them in the height of that is, do not forget about Sudan. And you know what, Brother Ismail? The collection that Jummah, which was December 2024, was the highest collection that they had for the entire year. It surpassed what they collected on the last Jummah of Ramadan. Because the people, and it was large black community there, Somalis, everyone else, and it wasn't because of me. Allah used me as a vehicle in that instance there, but to remind them and to share with them what we had seen firsthand in Sudan was enough to galvanize the people. And I'm saying it wasn't just the black community that was giving, it was the rest of the community in that regard. So you're absolutely right that why are we only focusing on other causes except our own? And that brings us back to the UK as well. And I'm going to share something here with you, Ismail. And I saw you that day, I think, actually. Remember there was that event in Brixton Town Hall a few years ago? Right.
Yes.
We saw each other there. And you know why I left, but I had to leave suddenly because Sheikh Abdurrahman, we were told he had died. Yes, that evening.
Okay. Yes.
So
yes.
I remember going to his home and his body was there, and the son and some of the extended family was sitting outside waiting for the ambulance to come and everything. And I went with a brother of ours and I just sat next to him and held his hand, and he was lying there, looked very peaceful, serene. And I saw the condition that he died in. And this is one of the things that we keep hearing with regards to our elders and the help that they need. And I know that, mashallah, Jazakallah khair, you, Abdul Hamid, and others have done fundraising for our elders in that regard. How is it that our elders, some of them, not all, are living in abject poverty in the UK? How is it? After they've done what they've done for the community, how are we honoring them with the nice watches and the putting on weight, if we're doing that, or our gym memberships and everything like that, and we're not even calling in on them, and they no longer have that extended family unit like some of us?
Yes.
Unlike our traditional brothers and sisters who have the grandparents staying with them, the great grandparents, they've got that whole network that's there, and it even goes back to Africa or to the Indo-Pak subcontinent. We stop right here because we don't have that extended Muslim family. So seeing Abdurrahman that day and sitting with him, I was distraught. I was happy to see the serenity and tranquility in his face, lying there and everything. But seeing that and thinking, what are we doing? And that's one of the jobs that I've got in my consultancy now as head of community engagement for National Zakat Foundation, because their focus is on the UK only. We have big poverty groups across the UK, communities in poverty. So my question is, what are we doing about those convert elders who have given up almost everything to be on this deen and to lead and to identify and show that visibility, and whose shoulders we're standing on now? Yes, there was Jamaica. Yes, there was Sudan. Yes, what I saw in Guyana shocked me, even though it's now the fastest growing economy in the world and one of the wealthiest with the oil that's there. And they've still got that internecine fighting between the Asian and the black community, and the black community are the lower ones again. But what are we doing here as black Muslims? And even those who are not black Muslims, how are they representing? Ismail, Brixton Mosque is the first black-led and owned mosque, Orthodox, in the history of Islam in Britain and Europe. That's how significant our community is. And it was our elders who moved in there, blessed us. We came in, as you know, took over, ran it, purchased the masjid. It has a significance in the society. But again, coming back to your point, if we are not going to highlight this, if we're not going to shout from the rooftops about our existence, our unique existence, our unique mindsets and abilities, no one else is going to do that. And we will just continue to perpetuate these unspoken stereotypes that are there. And when I was and coming back to when I was abroad, do you know what one of the biggest lessons that I learned when I was abroad?
Go on.
How British I was. And that wasn't me putting that on and saying Rule Britannia. Because of my accent, because of how we moved, because you could spot a Black Brit a mile off, again, swag and some people would say, or how we conduct ourselves when we're speaking and everything. That fearlessness of we didn't come to Islam to worship scholars. We came to Islam to worship Allah, and so we have that sort of autonomy there. People pointed out how British I was. The American brothers, our Black American, African American brothers, like, you guys are so British. Do you understand? Because we had a particular behavior that we espoused. So I realized that and wasn't ashamed of it. So when I would ever say I'm proud to be British, I'm not talking about the British Empire. I'm not talking about colonization. I'm talking about the Britishness that our parents who came here fought, bled, literally in some cases, for to make sure that our path was such that we could stand with the resilience, with the pride, with the anger, with the love that we have now. And the path was written for us to come to Islam. So that's what I learned being back there and coming back to the UK when things were sort of winding down. I spent my last 2 years in the Middle East in Dubai, and I saw how the colonial mindset is welcome there. And I saw how white Britons absolutely love it there because the gates are open for them in a big way. As I was leaving, I had one more job, and I thought, no, it's not going to come through in time. I need to get back to the UK. My children have all grown up and everything. And I sat, Ismail, and I looked and thought, right, let me recount over the last 20 years how many people I knew who were at the top of the ladder or the top of the tree in positions like I was. Ismail, I couldn't even finish counting on one hand. I Googled, I looked it up, I thought about individuals I knew in positions in Saudi. I searched for people in UAE to see there must be other individuals at top executive positions, Black converts, African Americans in Saudi Arabia. And I was hard pressed to find them. So that made me realize as well, that isn't our home. For as long as I made the Middle East my home and loved living there, that wasn't my home. That wasn't my place of belonging. Spiritually, perhaps because of the Haramain, of course, but it didn't extend beyond that.
Question. Okay, so now you're back. Now you come off the plane. You probably came back and it was raining and cold, but you're on a mission now. You're focused, and you're like, "Wow, what does Abdul Haq want to establish?" I mean, just to reverse a little bit, you mentioned the issue of our elders, revert elders who don't have extended family. No one is going to look after them except his own community, his own people, being revert Muslims or Muslims in that community. Now, keeping that in mind, what's your plans? What's your ideas? You come off the plane, you're settled, you're saying, "Rah, what am I doing now?" What's your focus now, Abdul Haq?
Alhamdulillah, my focus is to really raise the visibility of Black Muslims in the UK and our place in not only the Muslim communities, but society. And so the various consultancy that I'm doing at the moment, I did a big project with the National Health Service recently. They saw some of the work that I'd done in the street, and I bought some of those frameworks for Genomics England because they wanted to get into the Muslim communities. And I said, well, no, you have to get in a way that we work with them to raise their awareness, because like what happened in eugenics, where we saw that what happened in eugenics and the master race and everything with the Holocaust and the German Nazis, I said, genomics can go the same way. And this time we need to educate our people so that they are ahead of the curve, not behind the curve. So I did a big project with them, got community involved. Community loved it because they were the ones who said what they wanted to see, what they didn't want to see. That was one project that finished in September. With the National Zakat Foundation now, I'm bringing connection and connectability with other communities. So for example, the Convert Muslim Foundation, which has got about 60 affiliate convert organizations. I've been having discussions with them, and we're looking at doing some partnerships, Zakat partnerships, where we're going to be working with them in the 60 affiliate organizations. Al-Ihsan Zakat and Sadaqah Institute is a Nigerian organization. They have currently 20, but they've got another 42 organizations affiliated to them. So a total of 62 organizations. We've just signed, and I spearheaded the signing of contracts with them to bring that visibility up, not only about need for zakat, but we have affluence among us for those affluent to identify that they can give their zakat, their sadaqah within our communities to uplift our communities. And this appeals to the younger Black communities as well, because we've got some very talented entrepreneurs in that regard. Because Ismail, while we're looking at our elders and their needs, we're losing our younger generation who are sitting more comfortably in that Black space or that mosaic or canvas of multiculturalism, where Islam is so diluted that you barely recognize it now. And as you know, social media has become the third parent, and the values that we're trying to inculcate in our children, they're pushing back against it. So a focus on them to bring them through or make them understand those 4 stages that I've identified and spoken about according to the prophetic methodology, so we don't lose them, Ismail. So again, focusing on our elders, focusing on our youngers, focusing on the overarching Muslim community, but with a prioritization of Black communities, especially convert communities, before we fall off, before we are even more invisible than we are at the moment.
How do you think? I mean, it's a path that we have to navigate, right? Do you know about the issue about Elaine Payne?
I've seen some of her things and what she's banging on about. Yes.
How can how I think it affects the Muslims is that, and there was some replies from some revert Muslims who are actually doing business with their South Asian community, and they are obviously their interaction with the South Asian community has been positive. Either doing trade with them, they're helping business wise, and they had nothing but good to say. But I said on the other side, you're going to find some interactions with non-Muslims and the South Asian, which is going to be negative, right? How do we now deal with both sides? We have to, one, acknowledge and push back on the racism within the ummah, and we also have to say to our people who are not Muslim that, hey, we understand, we acknowledge, and we're working on it. How do we play both sides of this space? One, addressing the Muslim ummah. Listen, you can't be speaking to people like this. One is haram. You're no better than a person because of your nationality or race. It's got to do with taqwa. How you speaking? Because I saw some of the text that was the abuse that she got from Asians. I don't know if they're Muslim or not. Some of them could be Muslim, but it was atrocious. And I think as going forward, that has to be addressed. How do we address that situation, Abdul?
Very good point. These questions are important, Ismail, and I'll answer those questions. So, with regards to the South Asian community and the existing anti-Black racism, it is a thing. It is a reality, and it needs to be addressed head on. Alhamdulillah, I've been contacted by a few communities, just about to be speaking with them because they want me to come in and to address those issues in their community. So I'm speaking with them there. That needs to be addressed very robustly, and an education needs to be given to them as well, about the very existence and presence and honoring of Blackness throughout Islamic history, and preceding that with the likes of Prophet Musa alayhi salam, who we know was of Black complexion, and a number of Anbiya and leaders. That's one side. That's a continuous thing we need to do. And we've been in that space. We've been in that space and confrontation right the way through us being on the deen. Okay. On conversely, what's really important is going into those spaces with individuals like Elaine, and white spaces as well, and sitting down with them and addressing their grievances. Because Ismail, when Southport happened with that killing of those young girls, the murder of those young girls in Southport, I sat in a big round table meeting. Various people were there, and I said to the Asian community, and I say this now, and I'm not holding back on saying this. Speaking to white communities, and I would dare say Black communities, is not to be done necessarily by the South Asian communities themselves. The perception of Islamophobia is driven largely by white perceptions that all Muslims are predominantly Asian. And you'll hear the abuse of women, Paki, this, whatever, and the grooming gangs that they keep referring to and everything like that. You won't see those references to black and white Muslims in that instance. Yes, there are some negative connotations towards Arabs. So the point I'm making here, as converts, I studied this, I wrote about it in my PhD. There are other academics who've mentioned this, Kate Zabiri, Ali Khos, and Sophie Rold from Scandinavia, that as converts, we are the most effective conduits, bridge builders or bridge connectors between the non-Muslim society, be they white or black, and the Muslim community, because we traverse both spaces.
Both sides,
our
yes.
feet in both spaces. So when we've got our South Asian brothers and sisters and Arabs who are doing what they can and saying what they can, and Islam is a religion of peace, and Islam, it doesn't see color and everything, but you see anti-black racism coming out from them, it's an oxymoron, it's a contradiction, it smacks of hypocrisy in that regard. But when we go into those spaces, and I've spoken with white racists, and I've heard what they've had to say, and I've said, do you know what? Many of what you're saying, that resonates with us, not just black Muslims, but that's Asian Muslims that will resonate with as well. So you need to remove that focus on Islam and look at the issue in and of itself, because it's not necessarily a religious one in that regard. But those who should have those conversations are none other than those in the spaces like us, black converts, white converts. I really believe that. And when you sit with the conversation we're having with our black brethren, non-Muslim individuals, when they're hearing us speak and us bringing the examples that we're bringing and saying, yes, the slavery was a bad thing and they were not respecting it because they were enslaving fellow Muslims, which you're not allowed to do. It's not permissible in the deen to enslave fellow Muslims. And they were not adhering to Islam in that particular regard. But we agree with you, the way it was practiced was bad. We agree with you, there is an anti-black racism amongst some of the Arabs and amongst some of the South Asians. We agree with you, it's there. We don't like it, but that's not the religion. And we tell them that. Those are the conversations we need to have. And we need to show up in those spaces. But we have to show a unity of purpose amongst ourselves as black people.
Abhak, fantastic. I agree with what you're saying. I mean, if we were to say black Muslim leadership, who represents that in the UK now?
No one.
Okay, so there's a void, there's a space that needs to be filled, and I'm hoping yourself, some other brothers can fill that space, because as the few points that we've discussed, it's important for a Dawah perspective, from the point of the Ummah in general, that we are shooting ourselves in the foot in regards to how we represent Islam in the UK. We're doing so much damage. And we need the likes of yourself who have got experience traveling, working with different Muslims all around the world to put together some kind of structure, a management team and marketing. And it's a Dawah, from a Dawah perspective, it's essential. Is this on your to-do list now?
Well, do you know what, Ismail? And I'll share the article with you afterwards, and that can maybe be the discussion for another time.
Yes.
Myself, Musa, Dankwa, when we were working together as strategic consultants, I came up with replacing and realigning the triangular transatlantic slave route that decimated nations. And what I said is we should have a triangular identity nexus. And what do I mean by that? If we start reconnecting diaspora across the three continents of the Americas, Africa, Europe, where we start communicating and connecting socio-economically, socio-religiously, socio-politically, and we start trading and engaging and build up such a network across those avenues that once enslaved us and decimated us, that would make us come back together as such a strong force in all of those particular areas. And if we focused on that and then invited other cultures and communities in, once we'd strengthened that in ourselves, would be a force to be reckoned with. But at the moment, what are we doing? I know you mentioned our brothers, alhamdulillah, I've got good relations in the South Asian communities and everything, and some have in the Arab communities and the white communities. But all we're doing is strengthening those communities. Where is the new and core strength of our black community? Where is the black pound or the black dollar, as Malcolm X was highlighting before? We need to do with and for ourselves, while simultaneously continuing the work with our other communities.
Of course.
But we've got to work within ourselves, and that is absent at the moment.
But you know what? Like sometimes, because we always speaking of other communities. Why isn't it by nature that we are doing for self?
Good question.
Like we're like oh, look what them guys are doing, and look at that community. Like, okay, there's the issue of education, there's the issue of colonization, there's the issue of breakdown of the family. But you know the discussion about why aren't others inviting us to their table? The point is, why don't we have our own table?
Right. So that is what I always say. When they ask what I bring to the table, I bring the damn table.
Yeah.
And we need to bring the table, Ismail. Why? Because what you've said there, this is a reality. We see the fruits of inherited wealth in society today. The flip side of that, there is inherited poverty.
Yes.
Okay. There is inherited poverty, and we see that amongst black communities, and we see that the poverty mindset, that scarcity mindset, is something that plagues us, and it's been there. Look, when I spoke to my mum, my great grandfather, that's how close it was a slave. My mum's grandfather's grandfather was a slave. That's how close it is to us, Ismail. And so generationally, it's going to take a long time to remove that poverty mindset, that scarcity mindset, and that inherited, not only the inherited poverty, but the inherited trauma that we carry with us. Think about it. We're being categorized as the most violent black people, violent black people. That's the biggest contrict that Shaitan has put in the Western world, because when you look at the violence that was done upon us and our bodies, and that continues to be done to us and our minds today, it was Europeans, and they continue to be. Look at what Trump is doing and what's happening to Palestinians via Israel. They continue to be the most violent species of human on the earth
ever. Yeah, I just had a light bulb moment, Abdul Haq. I'm talking about my experience as a Muslim. Like for myself, one parent family, mother brought me up, didn't know nothing about university, just left school at 16, no qualifications. It's only till I became Muslim and learned about other cultures, different stuff. What am I doing? Like, and I think the Riva Muslim community is in the ideal situation because they have come from, you might say, as you said, generational poverty. They've now embraced Islam, mixed with other cultures, and think, oh, that's how you do that. That's how you do that. So now I'm saying, for example, like just my children, right? They ain't leaving school until they got a profession. Either you're going to go university, become an academic, or you become a trade. So within one generation, like now, alhamdulillah, this is from Allah. This is not like there's two professionals in that they've married another professional, and they now have the potential to buy a house. It's just fortunate that whoever they married, they've got a yard. So our experience as revert Muslims and understanding to some extent how other cultures maneuver, we can now bring that to our people and say, okay, within one generation or two generations, you could now establish generational wealth. But it means education, it means setting rules, regulations. You ain't leaving school until you've got your degree or you're working a profession. And I think that is something that will help the dawah immensely if that could be part of the dawah as well. If say, okay, listen, we've got religion, but we've got dunya as well. If you want dunya, then this is the way. Stick to education, establish, don't marry anyone, don't make your daughter marry anyone. Establish, rules and regulation. I think we can bring that to the table, and that would be highly effective in dawah as well. Do you know what I'm
It's
saying? Dean and
very
Dunya.
powerful, and I agree with you. And I would add to that. So what you said is spot on. Look, Ismail, we came from the same stables. I came to the dean, then I started studying because I was thrust into leadership. I wanted to be a better leader. I wanted to
Yes.
understand more. That's why I did my MBA. Then I went to do the PhD because I got tired of people talking about our reality from outside. I wanted to talk from the inside. But what is important while we are inculcating in our children to study for the reasons you've said is they've got to look at their studies and understand it is a colonial perspective that has been taught, and that they need to read between the lines, behind the lines, read backwards, and then you understand once they've got those qualifications and they've built those professions, that they now need to start looking at how the system can be changed by leading by example. In one instance, they don't have to shout from the rooftops and everyone sits down and says we're students of knowledge, but in their professions, like some are doing already in other communities, leading by example where others are looking at them just like our Salaf did and saying these people think different, they've got a different moral code, they've got a different concern, this is who we need to be following. Just like you said, people start looking at them, and then what invariably happens, Ismail, with the will of Allah, of course, is that the current system starts getting unraveled, starts getting dismantled, and in its place, another one starts being born. The prophetic model is there with Makkah. We see what's happened as Islam spread across Andalus and the rest of the world, the then known world in that instance there. We have a blueprint. We just need to contextualize it in the 21st and inshallah 22nd centuries, and our children and grandchildren need to have that way of thinking. Inshallah.
Yeah. Abdul Haq, it's been a pleasure. We just hit 1 hour, and we just touched on the tip of the iceberg. You get what I'm saying? There's a lot deeper topics that we need to get into, and I'm gonna be checking you soon because we
Inshallah.
still haven't spoken about running communities as leaders, the difficulties and it's a complex issue. We need to speak about that, but I will definitely catch you up another time. Abdul Haq, it's been a pleasure for your time. I know you're
Likewise.
very, very, very busy, and we'll catch up soon, inshallah. Jazakallah khairan.
Jazakallah
Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum, doctor.
Wa alaikum salam, my brother. Assalamu alaikum.
Okay, that was a very insightful conversation with Dr. Abdul Haq Baker. It's something which we will discuss again. These are the kind of topics that we're going to be touching on, and I want your feedback. I want your likes, your dislikes, your comments, because this needs to be a channel or a platform where we deal with real issues and we're looking for real solutions. So if this is something which you like, please comment and subscribe to the channel, and we will be back next week, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.